Four, three, two, one. Aha, it's the conversationalists. Do you remember that song?
I do.
Manfred Man.
Yep.
You're not that old, John.
No, but I know it.
That was before your time.
It was.
Anyway, welcome back, everyone, whoever might be there as ever. Um, I think we've missed a few of these since Christmas. This is our first since Christmas.
Wow, has it been that long?
I think it is, yeah.
Wow.
I know. So, John and I were doing some little video clips the other day to introduce conversational leadership for this big workshop that we're planning in the UK here in September. And I kicked off by giving my definition, if you like, or explaining how I saw conversational leadership. And as ever, I started off by saying what it wasn't, which always seems a strange way of doing things. But so many people, I think, misunderstand conversational leadership because they look at the title and they think it's about having better conversations. And so the first thing I say is it's not about having better conversations. Although I quickly add, it's not that having better conversations isn't part of conversational leadership. And it's probably quite a large part. I often play it down and say, really, it's quite a small part. But it is a big part of what conversational leadership is about. But it's not the whole essence of it. Because if you go to the web, I mean, John and I have done this. There are thousands, I mean, there are probably thousands of books on difficult conversations. I can't remember all the titles now.
Mhm.
Um, Problem conversations, how to have better conversations. Um, and that's kind of been the dominant literature for as long as I can remember. Very rarely do I come across books that talk about conversation the way that we do. A few years ago, there was a book, Talking, by, in fact, got the book right here, by Boris Groysberg and Michael Slind. And that's about conversation, but it's not. It's very, very different to the way that you and I see it.
Mhm.
So I thought it'd just be worthwhile in this session to explore that together because I know again, you and I, there's so much you and I agree on in that sort of big sense, and there's lots of little things that we disagree on. Actually, one of these days we're going to find something that we really disagree on,
Yeah, sure.
and then we can have a real
I,
conversation. It can
I,
even be a debate.
I know. I think we kind of found it. I think it's a flow of knowledge. So
it's it's
maybe a
it's
future
it's
one.
knowledge flow, as if
Yeah,
knowledge could flow like water.
yeah,
Oh my God!
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
that's
Different,
another
different,
topic.
different topic. Yeah, you texted the idea, so I put a few seconds of thought into it. Um, and it's funny because as I was saying to you when we were texting and chatting, I usually, maybe it's because you do the conversational leadership is not this and this and this. I don't, but even when you're not around, I tend to say conversational leadership is this and this, and I start with the is. But I can totally relate to you because, as I mentioned to you, and I think you know, when I describe, well, maybe not so much knowledge management as a whole. For knowledge management, I just say there is no one definition. It depends on your context, and
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
can upset people or throw people off. Um, but for communities of practice, I will do that. I'll say communities of practice are not communities of interest. Communities of practice are not clubs. Communities of practice are not steering councils or committees or, and I'll give a list of 5 or 10 things that a community is not. And then I'll say, so if you kind of know what those other things are, and it's not that, let's talk about what it is. And I hope it helps. I don't really get positive or negative feedback on it. I do the same thing for OD, organization development, and this was just recently recorded, where I'll say OD is not OD. It's funny to me because I'm a geek, but what I mean is organization development is not organization design, because
Yes, you,
that's
you
what
make that distinction. Yeah.
those two get blurred so much. And at least the way I was mentored and brought up and practiced and All the stuff is like org design is the strategy and structure stuff, the reorgs, the firing people and redoing the reorg, or the org structure, the hierarchy, right? The org chart. And I think a lot of people come into OD and think it's that, or a lot of people come into OD and think it's leadership development, and like you just run a retreat or a
Yeah.
workshop, and that's the whole
See,
of
people take
OD.
they take the two words and they try to interpret them literally. It's the same
As
with knowledge management. I would say if I was talking about knowledge management, hey, I'm going to talk about knowledge management, but the first thing I want to say is you can't manage knowledge,
sure,
or what you can manage information, but that is not that is not knowledge management. And it seems
yeah,
a strange way of opening, doesn't it? But
yes,
I think you've got to set people's minds so they're sufficiently open, sufficiently fertile to to not get overly caught off in the label,
yeah, in the
which
in
is
the
what we
label, the
do.
words,
We like
the
to give
category. Yep.
we like to give two words, knowledge management, organizational development, organizational design, knowledge management, information management. We
Yep.
try to sum things up in two words
Mm,
and expect people to understand what we're talking about in two words.
yeah. 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 I think you and I have done this, but just for fun then, is there another two words? Is there another one or two or three words that conversational leadership, like, have we talked about this? Like collective sense making. Would that be a better title? Would it be navigating complexity? Would it be
Yep.
something about rationalization, rationalizing?
It's interesting you say collective sense making. I was looking back at Nancy Dixon's three eras of knowledge management, which she published about 2004, I think, a long
Mm,
while ago. So number one was information sharing,
hmm.
capture it, tag it, all the good information stuff. Number two, share knowledge after action reviews and all that. Communities of practice.
Mm.
Again, now number one's all about the technology. Number two is starting to talk more about the people. And then number three, guess what it was?
Oh, I should
Collective
definitely
sense
have that.
making.
Was that her third? I kind of thought that was, oh no, her
No,
fourth
she
was,
only had three.
but then she added a fourth more recent, and it was a
She might
knowledge
have added a fourth
creation
more recently. I was looking, and because unfortunately her website's,
down.
I'm
Yeah.
not too sure what's happened with Nancy.
Yeah.
I had to go to the Internet Archive to find it, and
Mm,
her original paper as well.
yeah.
But
But yeah, collective, I think was third era, and then
collective sense making.
knowledge creation as the fourth era, which is, yeah, why we worked with her and how conversational leadership is so close to that third and fourth era, but somehow different.
Now it's kind of interesting of all the people working broadly in this area that we're talking about. Um, I guess the two people that have had the most influence on me, the two people you'll see me reference the most, uh, our dear friend Dave Snowden and Nancy Dixon.
Mm,
She was, in many ways, when it comes to the conversational side, the people side, she was way ahead of her time.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, collective sense making might be the closest for me. What were the others you mentioned then? You
Something
suggested?
about rationalizing. I don't think we would go the innovation knowledge creation route. Oh, sense
No.
making, meaning making, decision making. Oh, navigating complexity, which would be the Snowden stuff.
Yeah, but you're then
Um,
kind of getting just into complexity and Snowden's stuff. And
yeah. And I think for
we're
me,
drawing on a lot of Snowden's, Cynefin framework and his work. But at the end of the day, we're not complexity theorists or
no,
experts in any
no.
sense. We're trying to make all of this more human, more personal,
Yeah,
I think, more readily available to people, because I'm sure that the vast majority of people, even something as relatively simple as the Cynefin framework, would actually switch them off.
yeah, yeah.
So, by and large, people understand what conversation's about. Uh, they understand what leadership's about, even if we are using the words in a slightly different way to
It's reminding me of those
conveys.
talks we had years ago about mindset, skill sets, tool set,
Yeah,
where I think on one hand, maybe we need to focus on one or make clear, because I do think we do a lot of mindset, like the whole like when you say conversational leadership is not this and this and this, and then you sort of get to it is this. I think you're in that mindset, like you said,
It's in
like
the mindset piece,
do you think in a
which,
conversational way? And then I
yeah,
sure I'm there and I like to talk about that stuff and give examples of theories and models. But then I think there is like I think you and I both, but definitely for me, there's a push into great, I'm with you. You don't need to preach to me. So tell me what I do when I can't disagree with my boss, or tell me what to do when my boss only dictates and directs and tells me what to
but
do, and
this
it's
is
not
this is
conversation.
a lot of the problem. People want tools, they want techniques, and all
Yeah.
the books that I've read tend to go over tools and techniques. And for me, it's it's a lot more about fundamentally seeing the world differently. It's that change in mindset, that change in attitude. And at times it might seem rather theoretical, rather philosophical, but it's foundational. I think if you don't start to see the world differently, then trying to master a lot of tools and techniques ain't going to work. We said it the other day on that video with KMI. I used the example of the after action review. It's probably, to my mind, it's one of the simplest and most powerful KM tools, and nobody does it. Nobody uses it.
Or they don't do it exactly in the four questions. Or they don't do it often enough,
Yeah,
that kind of
often enough,
thing.
maybe. I mean, I
Or
don't have any problem what they call it, or whether they um, don't use the four questions. Just sitting and reflecting together occasionally,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
think is useful.
Sure, yeah,
To
especially
understate it.
if it never happens and if people do feel safe and ready and that
Mm.
kind of stuff. But then tell me about the Knowledge Cafe, because I know that's a big part for you. Wouldn't that be a tool and a technique? Like,
Um, yes, in some ways it is. It's a little bit larger in scope than an after action review. Um, it is in some sense a tool. It is in some sense a technique. Um, but in some ways, what I'm trying to do is bring people together to have a conversation about a topic of, as I often say, mutual interest. Um, but unlike a conventional maybe facilitator, I'm not trying to direct them. I'm not trying to direct them to a particular conclusion. I'm not trying to direct them to any conclusion. Um, in fact, in some ways, all I'm trying to do is to get them to um, enjoy having a good conversation and appreciate the power of conversation. Because again, people often say, "Well, what are the outcomes, David?" And I say, "Well, it's what people take away in their heads, and everybody takes away something different, a little insight. It might be about the power of conversation. It might be some insight that's somebody gave them. It might be simply that they made a really great new buddy that goes on to have some tremendous relationship, and something really positive comes out of that. Because it's sort of emergent and unfolding, you can't predict what's going to come out of it. But usually good things come out of it.
so then let's try it to like, do we dare go this route? Apply conversational leadership to like current world events, since you and I were just talking about this anyway. Are we sort of saying that like a lot of the big problems in the world are because the mindset, regardless of any tool or technique, whether you ever ran Knowledge Cafe, if you're not approaching the world in a conversational and leadership way, then no wonder. Is that kind of
I think a lot of the problem in the world at many different levels is that we are seeing each other as enemies and not as friends. I don't mean we're going to go around loving everybody, but just because somebody has a different political view or different religious view to me shouldn't mean that I want to kill them. It means, hey, here's a great opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with them and figure out why we see the world differently. Again, not with the aim of necessarily changing their minds, but maybe changing our own minds. So again, it's better understanding, and whether it's at a family level, at a community level, at a societal level, at a global level, if more people took that approach, it's not going to solve all the problems in the world, that's for sure. There's still going to be wars and disputes, but the world in many areas would be a better place. And again, the leadership thing is as much about taking responsibility, stepping forward and practicing leadership for the things that you do have some influence over. I mean, you and I have got no influence over the war in Ukraine or the war in the Middle East, but we've got influence and responsibilities we could take on closer to home within our families, within our communities, within the people that we interact with. So do what you can.
Mm.
Stop seeing each other as enemies because they're different to us.
Uh, yeah, and it's an Abraham Lincoln quote, right, that you reference on that one? We are,
I
do you remember that one? Yeah,
yes, I do.
there's a speech that he gave that had that kind of line in it.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
it's in slightly old-fashioned language. I've forgotten the exact wording.
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't do it justice. But
yeah,
that seeing each other as friends, not enemies, comes from an Abraham
which
Lincoln
back to Nancy
speech.
Dixon, I believe, better angels, braver angels. I
Yeah,
can't remember
yeah. That's the other phrase. There's even an
that
organization called Better Angels. The better angels of our nature. That may have come from.
the same speech,
I
I
think it
think.
came from the same speech.
Same speech. I think so too.
Yeah.
So, okay, so there's a bunch of ties there. Um, oh, I can't believe I remember. What was coming up for me as you were saying all that was the knowledge illusion. And I think this is a real thing. And I guess I'm seeing
Oh,
more and more of it in all my clients and my workshops is um, I've held this belief that people, I don't want to, I'll exaggerate a little bit and say only learn through experiential and doing stuff. And you don't really learn when I give you a PowerPoint slide and tell you something. And
yeah.
I've stepped back, because, and I think like you, I just got so frustrated with PowerPoint being the only learning and development tool to that I overcorrected to no PowerPoint ever. And so now I'm somewhere in this middle space of like, all right, a little bit of content, a little bit of
Yeah, I'm the same
exercise.
on that.
But
Yeah.
what I find is like, people will often, dare I say, blame introvert extrovert. Because, Myers-Briggs took off and had so much power that people say, oh, it's not even I'm an introvert preference. It's I am an introvert. Therefore, I will not engage. Like I have to go study. And after I study for a long time, I'll come back. Or the opposite extreme of like, sure, 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 I'll blab and blab and blab, but I'm not actually
It's a
making a point.
defensive mechanism, isn't it?
I, and it's this
People saying this is
fear.
who I am, therefore don't try to change me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the change side, but that knowledge illusion that you do so well of like, we all sort of think we know things, but as soon as we're gently challenged, it's really hard to say, I don't know, or even like, where did I hear and learn
Yeah.
that from? Or like have your own thoughts.
Well,
And
as you know, I'm a great fan of Peter Bakassian because he's
Mhm,
sort of a Monday Socrates, goes around asking people to share with him his, their deepest belief, and then he just keeps questioning it. And
mhm,
some of the time, he actually dismantles it. He certainly manages to move them a little,
mhm,
um, and we need more of that. There's so much that we take on in life, I guess, in childhood and our younger lives, where we accept things blindly because our teacher told us, our parents told us. We don't actually question it. I think the example I tend to give is that we think that you and I, if asked, would say that the Earth circles the sun. The only reason we say that is because we were taught that. If we use our own senses, it certainly would seem the other way. I see the sun move across the sky. No, we're not circling the sun. The Earth's spinning. Come on, give me a break. We'd fall off, wouldn't we? I mean, we've accepted that. We've accepted that from the scientists, and we've also accepted it in the sense that once you understand a little bit more about physics, if you like, and the movement of bodies and Newtonian laws and what have you. Um, it's coherent. It's a coherent theory. It makes a lot more sense than the sun going around the Earth. But to a large degree, and certainly when we first came across it, we just accepted it. We didn't question it, and we need to start to question more. And again, it takes a conversation. It takes you and I having a conversation where you say, David, where did that idea come from?
Hmm.
And you go,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure. That's good, but I think you've said this, you've made this point before of like, at what point is it worth, like, does every single person have to go do the research themselves to prove that the Earth goes around the sun, or can we trust? And do we just have to own that? Do we just have to say out loud, I've never done the research, but
But
I believe?
well, look, for you and I, it doesn't really matter one iota whether the Earth goes around the sun or the sun goes around the Earth. Sure enough, maybe if the sun went around the Earth, we'd have a problem with the GPS or satellites or something. But for the vast majority of people, it doesn't really matter. But there are things closer to home. And I don't have a good example at hand where it does matter, where we do have false beliefs that do personally affect us. And it's those that really need rethinking. Well, I mean, again, the one we're just talking about, the most obvious one is seeing other people as enemies because they disagree with us. That does very much impact us.
What do you call that list? You call it principles? The seeing people as friends, not enemies. You had a nice label for that. Principles or beliefs or practices. Do you remember what you called that
Hmm.
in conversational
I don't
leadership?
think I ever gave it a label like that.
Ah,
It would be a principle. It would be a practice.
yeah. Because I think we have a few of those. That's just one.
I think we do have a few, and we should bottle those out for our workshop.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the exercises can be practicing to basically do your research, to experience it and go, okay, yes, I agree that we're friends, not enemies. Or, we've had people that we talk to that fundamentally disagree and say, no, if you're trying to kill me, then I cannot pretend or act or
Oh yeah.
engage as a friend
Oh no,
because
it's not black and white. Sometimes enemies really are enemies, and the skill is determining whether they're a real enemy and really want to kill you because they're psychopaths or whatever. Then yeah, at times I'm not saying that you don't have to fight. At times I'm afraid you do. But it's kind of interesting this conversation, John, because we started off talking about what conversational leadership isn't.
Mhm,
We've gone off on somewhat, well, we're still talking about what it is, but we,
mhm.
we, we never planned this conversation to go in this direction, which is
Yeah,
what I love
yeah.
about our conversations and conversations in general.
And then I just hope that as other people listen in, that it makes sense and
Yes,
they comment in and help us figure this stuff out.
yeah, because
Because I
it's
think at my deepest, it's so simple. I just hold on to that the world would be a better place, or there would be less, like you're saying, unfortunately, sometimes you have to fight. I would hope I literally believe that this kind of practice and work, and I don't know, shifting, um, would lead to less unnecessary pain and fighting
yeah,
and
absolutely.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I would too. Shall we stop there
Pause there.
and let's get into gear this year and start to do these pretty much once a week again.
All right, we got two cafes
Okay.
coming up. Join us for those.
Oh yes,